Hi everyone, welcome to the Car Chat podcast. I'm Sam Moores, and with us this week we have Matt Pry. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, welcome back. For those that have not come across you before or not listened to your previous episode on here, can you tell a little bit about sort of who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, my name's Matt, and I am the editor-at-large of Autocar magazine, which is the world's oldest surviving motoring title. So it was established in 1895 and is still going every week 127 years later. I've been there 17 years, 18 years in a few months, I think, and my job title has changed a little bit over the years, but I basically do the same thing, which is drive cars, write about them and talk about them, and eventually everybody gets, you stay at a magazine long enough, everybody gets editor in their job title somewhere. So we've, associate editor, executive editor, road test editor, sub-editor, managing editor, blah, 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 editor-in-chief. So I'm editor-at-large, which means I'm out and about quite a lot.
Cool. Well, you were on the podcast, it was about a year ago. And actually, since you came on the podcast, I, for Christmas, asked someone for a subscription. So for all the people.
Super. Nice.
And weirdly, actually, I had access to it before then in digital form, but I decided it was quite nice to have a bit of written paper. And it is, I find it exceptionally useful. There's lots of stuff. What I've realized now, getting something once a week, I've sort of bookended it. I've got Autocar that comes once a week, and then I've got Road Rat that comes every 3-4 months or something. And I've realized with something that comes once a week, sometimes I read it front to back, but probably what I do is I read, 75%. And I'm like, yeah, there'll be another one. By the time I've finished this or not finished this, the next one.
Yeah, I think that's not unusual.
Arrived.
I think that's a fairly typical use case. And we're also aware that for people who don't subscribe, they might not get it every week. But if you if you did try to keep on top of it, it's a bit, I sort of think of it a bit like something like the Sunday Times magazine or something. It's around, and you'll sort of flick through it a few times in the week.
Yeah.
You may not get through everything, and then another one turns up, before you've done. But it's the nice thing is it all gets in there. If you want to know which the 18th compact crossover launched this year is, it's all in there. All the news is in there. All the features are in there. It's comprehensive completely. And the back issues are really useful. You said then the digital subscription, which is great, but it's very searchable. And since we last spoke, the entire archive has been digitized and put online.
Oh, nice.
Which is amazing, and it's still a sort of beta-y type thing. So it's so the search is not as slick as it hopefully will be in the end, but it's an incredibly useful tool. What do we think of the Hillman Imp in 1965, where you can go back and find out exactly? It's all there. Everything is in there.
That is because I have, what do I have access to? I have access to basically the digital version of this through something else, but not the sort of official digital stuff. And often I'm looking at cars. I want to buy a car or just interested in a car, and I want to know the Autocar nerdy stuff. I want to know what the dimensions of the boot are, or what
totally.
the road noise is at a certain speed.
Which is not always easy to find through Google at the drop of a hat, is it? And it's nice to...
No. And
it's a really useful archive. I mean, I find it very useful. Even if I'm not doing work, I still find it a useful thing, because so much of my leisure time is cars and stuff as well. So really useful back issues.
What have you been driving this week? Have you been driving anything this week?
What have I been driving this week? Not loads, actually. We had big awards ceremony last week, so I haven't been driving lots. But I've just finished writing. This morning, I finished writing about a car called the Smit Vehicle Engineering Aletha, which is a BMW Z4 that looks like a Z8 coupe, which I drove a few months ago, about a month ago, and the deadline was the end of last week, which basically means Monday morning before anybody turns up. So I got up early to just read through that once more, and it's great. I thought it was really good. It just sounds... So taken a Z4, left the monocoque largely unchanged, put a carbon fibre coupe body on it, put the V8, which is effectively from that late 2000s era M3 GTS, which is the E93.
Okay, yeah.
M3. I get a bit, BMW codes leave me a little bit
Don't know.
lost at times. So 4.4 litre V8 with 450 horsepower, and it's just terrific. There's two brothers have made it, both engineers, not designers, even though it looks $1 million, and it's just really interesting and beautifully done, and it's good to drive. But what I like about them is because they're sort of very straightforward engineers. They're like, yeah, we know the ride's a bit harsh at the minute. There's too much steering kickback, and we've got this and that still to do. And it's a bit like buying a used car from somebody who's very straight about a car's faults. You know, you instantly go, oh, okay, all right, that's. You're not trying to hide anything from me. This is where we are. And you just very quickly assess those things and go, oh, yeah, okay, they need a bit of work. But the rest of it is just mega fantastic. So seem to have been spending a lot of time in or around or talking about Restomods of late.
Yeah.
It seems to be a thing.
The Smith Aletha, and was it Kais and... I can't remember
Kais and Willem, yeah.
They, we were meant to have them on the podcast. And we've tried to record twice, and their internet has been subpar. They've just moved as well.
Yeah, that's right. They're in Nashville, haven't they, instead of San Diego?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think we were trying to do it again this Thursday, and they're like, "Yeah, no. Unfortunately, we've got they've got satellite internet or something.
Oh,
it's
I
like, see. Like a dial-up 56K or something vintage like that. So we'll do it at some point, but that. I can't remember when I first heard about it, but it is one of those things you're like, that just looks cool. Looks cool. Sounds like it's very nice. That bit about them being straight up about, you've got an issue. I find often, recently I've been perusing cars and been to showrooms and looked at stuff and driven things and whatnot. And sometimes you talk to the salesperson and you go, yeah, but this annoys me. And they're like, yeah, fine. Like, okay. Or sometimes they just go, what are you talking about? You say the ride quality is awful. And they go, no, what are you talking about? It's great. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't even talk to you anymore because I've driven a lot of cars and this is awful.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Objectively,
great, whatever.
Yeah, this is not my opinion. This is not, I don't like Radio 3. This is hard. This is very, and that's the thing, isn't it? And that's, and I'd much rather, when you read an advert, a classified ad, this is the best you'll see, you'll buy it, don't waste my time, no offers, blah, blah, blah. I instantly think, I'm not going to buy this car from you. Absolutely not. But if somebody says, this is what I've done, this is what's good about it, this could do with a bit of work. And I just think, well, there you go. That's, I'm much happier with people who put their hand up and go, yeah, no, that's
I think that's
not perfect and I know it.
Reasonable evidence that if you say it's perfect, etc., you basically knock about 10% off the value, at least, because people go, you're bullshitting.
Yeah.
So if you're bullshitting, that means something's going to be wrong, and I'm going to have to factor that in. Whereas I learned ages ago, actually from eBay, if you literally just list every single thing, take photos of every scratch, you come across as the person, you've told them everything. Yeah. So they know exactly, they'll pay exactly the right amount for it. Whereas if you go, it's perfect, and there's one photo that doesn't really show the thing, you're like, I mean, it's a bit of a gamble, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, have you driven like all of the Restomods now? Now that is actually a very serious moving goalpost at the moment.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, isn't it? I've driven most, I would say. I haven't driven a Singer 911 at all, but I did drive a Gunther Works 993 the other week. Driven an Alphaholics GTAR, which is still my benchmark. I mean, I like small cars anyway, but I think that is just fantastic. I've driven a lot, but yeah, like you say, it's a fairly moving set of things. So I wouldn't like to say all, because you'll name 4, and I'll go no.
I think but I could list about 4 within the last month that have come out, and it's even I am starting to get a bit like, okay, hang on a minute.
The interesting thing is because there's a lot, but they're all built in such small volumes that all of them combined wouldn't keep Lamborghini Huracan production going for a week. Do you know what I mean? It's that they're such small numbers, but I don't know. But I do find them. I still find them interesting. I think but I'm getting a little bit more choosy about them. But not choosy, that's the wrong word. A little bit more when Restomods first started appearing, I just thought, they're all great. This is all fantastic. And now I'm being a little bit more, somebody goes, well, this is £500,000 and we've done this to it. And I'm just starting to go, ooh, well, somebody will do a lot more than that for a bit less than that. But that's the nature of an increasing market, I suppose, isn't it? If you're the only person doing something, you can charge what you like. But actually, when if there are 20 Restomods to choose from, you might start being a bit more objective about them.
And you also have some things to compare against.
Yeah.
You go, actually, I think the first Restomod was probably the Eagle.
Yes, I think
I'm not really aware of one that was. I'm sure there was something before that.
Maybe
people were messing,
but certainly not of
forever.
not at that level. I don't think, was it? I think that's a particularly high level.
A sort of
I've not driven
product sold. But then you get in because I've been in quite. I've been in quite a few. I've not been in the bloody Alphaholics. That's work in progress, but it'll happen at some point. I have actually driven a Singer, but not just like round town and a short little bit quick somewhere, but not really. But I drove I've completely forgotten. It's a company based near Oxford, and they do what looks like a Singer. And it's
not Tuthill Porsche.
No. It's like a product.
I think I may know. I think I may know who you mean, but I can't remember.
I did a photo shoot for them, and I've driven one of the customer cars. They've only done about 5,
right?
But it basically very similar sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Do they take a 964?
Yeah, 964 carbon body from zero. The guy Adam Hawley is the designer, and it's his company, but I can't for the life of me remember what the car's called. And do a similar sort of thing. And I went to them and saw a car all the way through the stages. So they had a 964 that was just arrived, which I just took for a little spin around the block, and then they had the chassis and then the finished one at the same time. So you got to see all the design and all the design underneath, which was quite interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
It's rather than just the finished finish. And I mean that those cars are like 400.
Okay.
And I don't know, Singers, you run into an issue where because you've got to pay the tax, they get quite a lot more expensive when you try and bring them over.
Yeah.
But I think they're about 5.
Yeah, I think they are at least, aren't they?
Ish.
Yeah. I think so.
And actually, my takeaway, they take this with a pinch of salt, but they were quite similar. Now, I'm not saying any Restomod is like a Singer. Mm-hmm. These two, they just approached the same problem in a similar manner to a similar level of detail. Okay. And they drove very similarly. And they both actually had, and I don't know whether Singers have changed now, a very weird throttle situation. Because they were all on carbs and like throttle bodies, etc. The throttle pedal is really stiff.
Okay.
The first bit of travel, first 3 centimeter maybe, really stiff, and then when the cam kind of comes on, then you can push it, which made short town driving or in one of them I had to launch off up a steep hill in a T-junction and just giving it all the beats.
Yeah, you're either gravelly away or a barrel load of revs.
But yeah, the Singer I drove was a very early one. And this was, I think, number 3 of these guys. And it was something they were working on. But it was interesting that they both had the same
thing.
Is
interesting.
If you apply the same, it's not that. When you think about it, you're like, okay, they've done the same thing to the engine. It's connected in the same way.
I wonder if standard 911s of the same era have the same effect?
I don't think so. And I think it's because they're not throttle bodied and you've not got the cable and you're not opening all of these things. You've added a lot more force and tension.
Oh, that's a fair point, isn't it? Yeah.
Onto the cable.
You are physically moving a lot more through the
Yeah. But then some people have now gone to electric, whatever. But it was my takeaway from driving those two was like, if someone's done it really well, and those were quite high end, you get a lot of, they're going to be quite similar. Like,
I think it's probably fair, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah.
Have you driven the Kingsley?
Yes, I have. Yes, which I enjoyed. I think my thing about old cars, and I enjoy them a lot, and I have several. But as they wear and get older, metal fatigues, and they weren't built with as much torsional rigidity as a new car in the chassis in the first place. So when you drive an old car and you sort of take up the initial bit of the steering, there's all that bit in the body as it's slowly coming together, it's slowly stiffening itself up to move. And, one, they were more flexible in the first place, and two, the last 40 years hasn't done many favours. So you can weld them up a bit, and you can do this and you can do that. And I really like that the sort of Kingsley mooches around, doesn't it? And it's, but it still feels like a bit like a classic car, even though it's a resto mod to an extent. And that's the thing I think about things probably like the higher end Singers and the Alphaholics and the Gunther Works car that I drove a few weeks ago. So they stiffen the shell at the same time. And then that makes an old car feel a lot more modern in terms of its in terms of its steering precision. Mostly that's the real thing. You don't have that sort of slackness around straight ahead that some old cars do. You get much more direct. I've got an old Beetle which has got I've got an old Beetle which has got a cage in it, and it's mostly rubbish. But the one nice thing about it is that because it's quite stiff, you turn the wheel and you sort of take up the slack straight away and go, oh, this is very nice. It steers very nicely, which is the only nice thing about the entire thing. But I think there's and I think so. I like old cars where they do pay a bit of attention to the stiffness of the shell. With the Kingsley, it doesn't matter so much actually, because it's a big old woofly cruising thing. I love the visibility of it too. You can see out of it so brilliantly easily, can't you?
I drove it around town, and it was great. Like you just look around and you can see everything. Yeah. You can see all the corners. Yeah. It goes like doesn't really go anywhere,
car, but great city car.
But that one, I think that is it about 125.
I think so. I think is it 125 plus the car, or is it? Or I can't remember if that's all in or not. I think
that's always a great caveat when you hear about some of these builds.
Yeah, we do have to watch that.
500 grand plus the car.
Plus the car. Oh, and quite often plus VAT as well. Whereas a manufacturer quotes, so we have a spec panel with every first drive or review that we do, and that will be here is the price. And quite often for a resto mod, it is here is the price from X. And by the way, that's not including the original, which may end up needing more work, which could push price up, and it doesn't include VAT. So you start working it out and you go, actually, what was 250, which is a lot of money, but you get a very nice car. You actually go, this is 600 grand by the time it sits on my driveway, which is quite a lot, really.
And then you take all these cars, and they're somewhat rare, so they're pretty low production, etc. And some of them, they're only going to make 20 or 30 or max like 100, and then they'll sort of stop, and you get this serious price, which fair enough. They put the price, people buy them, happy days. But then you look at stuff like an SF90. Now, just from a technological situation, whether you like the SF90 or not, I don't know, but those start at like 400 and something, and it's got 1,000 horsepower, and it's hybrid, and there's carbon everywhere, and it's like you go
and the warranty
£1 million
that comes with it, and they hold their value pretty well, and blah blah blah. I think the SF90 is not my favourite Ferrari at the moment, but it is a good car, you're absolutely right. The impression I get from speaking to some of the makers of them is they're dealing with people who've got big collections of cars already, and law of diminishing returns, whatever, it doesn't matter. And actually, when they go to Cars and Coffee meet or whatever, they like taking something that nobody else has got. And there's something I understand that. Yeah, I get that. And but yeah, like I say, I think I'm becoming a little bit more objective about them as more come. Because at the end of the day, I do, independent reviews, and they have a price attached, and they're unlikely though it may be. Some people, I occasionally get a note off of somebody who says, "Oh yeah, I was thinking about buying X and put one on the back of your review." I think it's a bit less likely when it comes to a 600 grand resto mod, but there is some longevity involved. Yeah, you never know.
I've definitely, I don't know whether I've such sold a car, but I've definitely put some people towards some quite expensive things at various points in time. But then I guess it is one of those things of if you as an independent company, and this is where you start to see the differences between the builds. If you're trying to create, let's say, OEM level of quality, and some probably argue that it's above OEM, but in terms of like reliability and whatever, OEM is a very, very high bar to get to. And you're only making 10 cars. Yeah. It doesn't matter what the car is. It's going to be exceptionally expensive.
It is, and you'll never get to... the guys from Smith were very straightforward about this, because the Aletha doesn't have a very different interior to a standard Z4. But they're so straightforward. They're like, well, look, BMW made these in, by the tens of thousands a year, and we're going to make maybe a couple of dozen. It doesn't matter what we do. We'll never make it to the same quality. But by quality, I don't mean tactile material quality, because you just use more expensive leather, and that's one area of quality. Yeah. But from an engineering quality perspective, which means building it exactly the same way every time, and it will last 120,000 miles and 12 years, and it doesn't. If you're building 10, you will never get to that unless you are charging tens of millions for each one, just because you can't go through that process. You can't go through that process, and it's it feels, and some I think they're getting better. But so when I was testing sort of Aston Martins of 10 years ago, they don't feel as good inside as Porsche 911s in terms of fit and finish. The material quality might be high. The leather is nice and soft, and this aluminium is this and that, but they feel less precisely assembled than something built by the tens of thousands in a factory, and I think that's inevitable, really.
Yeah, it is. And then you get companies. The one that everyone always lists is Bugatti on this scale. They're like, but they assemble and do. And they're building,
stuff they're building 500, and they're building, which is quite a lot by those sorts of standards. And and they've got a Volkswagen Group quality. And bear in mind, the first Veyron didn't make any money, and the Chiron has made money because they know what they're doing. But it's taken them 50. When did the Veyron come out? 2005. So it's taken them nearly 20 years to before they've finally gone, oh yeah, this is how we do one of these, and now we know how to make money off of a 500 strong production run. And most companies would not.
Can sell them.
Yeah, now we can sell them. Yeah, now we can sell them properly. And I think the first Veyrons were the last of the Veyrons. They were sort of rolling out special editions of 1 and 2 in an effort to sort of try and get through them all. And this time around, they know how to sell 500, and they've got a waiting list for the last.
And the market just in case anybody. Changed.
What's that, sorry?
The market has changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are more very wealthy people as well, aren't there? I think in the last 20 years.
There definitely are. And then also their appetite for cars. Because there's been people buying stupidly expensive art and boats for a long time. But to spend that much on a car, there's got to be something about the car to make it either the status symbol or the engineering or something to go,
exactly. And I think I think that even about at a lower level, just supercars, let alone hypercars. I think a lot of Bugatti, a lot of Chiron owners have more than one. But I also think about, because there seem to be a lot of mid-engine supercars on sale or appearing. So from the new Maserati MC20 to the Corvette to the Ferraris, there and Lamborghinis there have always been, and the McLarens, and then Aston are going to launch one too. And you go through and you think, well, you've got to really give somebody a very good reason to not buy something else at this point, especially when some of them are so good. They are so good. And then for Maserati to come along and say, here's an MC20, ignore all of the other stuff and buy one of these. You've really got to give people a compelling reason to do it. It can't just be pretty good. It can't just be just as almost as good as the other stuff. It's got to do something fabulously well. Otherwise, why would you? You know, why?
And
why?
Of the current crop of that level of car, do you think the one I think that stands out for being pretty mad is the 296 GTB, purely just the performance, like it's just nuts. But aside from that, everything else is either a turbocharged V8, or now we're starting to see turbocharged V6s. And they're all a bit same to me. They're all just quite same.
Well, they certainly do the same thing, don't they? That's what strikes me. You know, if you had a massive car collection, you need one, because they all do the same. So if you're going to go, all right, I'm going to drive to a track day at Spa or Nürburgring, whatever, you could take any of them, and they will do the same thing but slightly differently. So I suppose the Lamborghini has the V10 engine on its side still, which is mega. Maserati, I really enjoyed, actually. It feels almost like a GT car, which is really cool. It's got a really a ride that breathes really easily, and you're suddenly getting go, this is quite a relaxed mid-engine supercar. This is nice. The Ferrari, as you say, is just spectacular everywhere. I think I was a massive fan of the 296 GTB. I think my personal preference would be for a slightly lighter car, but I understand they've got to have a plug-in hybrid at some point. And Corvette has got price on its side because it's quite cheap. You know, given the amount of power it's got and everything else. The McLaren Artura, I'm not driving. Somebody from the mag is driving next month, which will be interesting to see how that is. I think I like McLarens a lot, but as one anonymous rival company CEO said, I couldn't sell different lengths of the same sausage at the different prices that they do. McLarens are great, but they have a similar carbon tub, they have the similar engine, they have a similar gearbox, they have a similar handling balance. You know, you can make a GT car out of one if you try, but it's still got that sort of fairly hollowish thump to the carbon tub, which between junctions 10 and 8 on the M25 is unbearably deafening. It just feels that hinging everything around that one philosophy is not helpful. I don't know why you would choose one McLaren over another, except one's a bit quicker and one's a tiny bit more comfortable, so on and so forth. I think that is an issue for their incoming new CEO to deal with when he arrives.
It makes buying this, like, I could see why his previously, and they are now with the Archer whenever that turns up. That is different from the next level of cars.
Yes,
it's now got a different power plant, but it's going to be as fast.
Yeah, pretty much.
Previously, the suspension. So you get the trick suspension on your 720 or whatever, which you don't get on others, which is cool.
It is
but
cool.
In terms of like speed,
and
there's not a lot in it.
No, and I think so. The differences were active aero, the suspension, and sort of some of the body construction, wasn't it? And that was what separated a sports series from a super series. But they're pretty niche.
Yeah,
they're pretty niche things, you know. Whereas the things that separate a Ferrari 296 from a GTB from an 812, well, this one's got a V12 engine and it's in a completely different place.
Yeah,
and it's different from the California again, and the and a bit the Roma again. Whereas and the difference between a Lamborghini Huracan and the V12 is cylinder count plus general attitude. So I think it's and I think it sort of tells in the residuals a bit as well. You know, they've got a sort of slightly confused range with a lot of niche model, a lot of special edition models and stuff like that. And I think it's could just make it simpler. Make it simpler for us.
Yeah.
Put bigger differentiation in between. I'll be interested to see if there was the plan that they said, well, we make money out of 3 model ranges: Sports Series, Super Series, and the Ultimate Series, which they'll make now and again. That will make enough money that we'll never have to make anything with 5 doors or an SUV. It'd be interesting to see whether that's still the case.
Still the case.
Future. Yeah.
Especially, so I don't know whether we'll see it. Will we see it with manufacturers where, because if you make an EV, let's say an EV SUV, like there's going to be a lot of them around. There are a lot of them around already.
Yeah.
If you make one of those and sell a lot, then can you still make something stupid with a combustion engine, or those engines are just going to disappear?
Well, you certainly can for the short term, but my understanding is that manufacturers are still hoping that they will be able to, for the longer term as well. But it slightly remains to be seen. So in the European regulations at the moment, there is, I mean, and let's not forget, in some countries they don't have the upcoming prohibition on internal combustion that we do, so they can still do them there. Now, my understanding is that in the EU, the regulations say that if you sell fewer than 1,000 cars a year, you're a micro manufacturer, and therefore you are out of scope of the regulations. So you can kind of do what you like. Now, none of the big manufacturers will say they won't want to sell fewer cars, so they'll all be guided by the legislation. But whether there's a possibility that they would hive off, so Porsche would make this is GT. This is a separate manufacturer called GT, and it makes GT3s, and they've got internally combusted engines running off of biofuels. Or not? Short of it, I don't know. And the UK legislation is still effectively based on the European stuff. I think it says if you sell fewer than 1,000 cars in Europe, you're out of scope. But I don't know when that's going to be updated. I did speak to an engineer the other day who said, no, I think actually they may well close all of these loopholes. So at some point, you won't be internally combusted. But by then, by the time it comes, who knows? Because the Europe EU is focused on a hydrogen future for central heating and aerospace and shipping. And if you've got to put the infrastructure in for that, then you could use that if you wanted to for some niche vehicles, I guess. Yeah. At the moment there's 10 hydrogen charging stations in the country, so it's no use making anything with a hydrogen engine. But if every port and every airport and some long distance trucking stuff has an outlet, and everybody's gas central heating is going to move that way, if it is, then if it's more available and you think, well, actually a hydrogen internal combustion engine is pretty clean and would be cool, then maybe you can do it.
Yeah, we'll see. It's I mean, who knows?
Who knows? I mean, predominantly battery electric vehicles are fine for most people. And there are companies whose sole survival depends on people wanting their cars. If you're a premium manufacturer or a sports car manufacturer, the reason people come to you and they don't go to a mainstream manufacturer is they want what you make. So they've still got to find a way to make those cars attractive, even without an engine. That's nothing. We like the noise and everything else, but if there's nothing intrinsic to the way a car drives that means, apart from the sound, there's no reason you couldn't get electric powers to simulate everything an internal combustion car does, except at the moment batteries are a bit heavy.
And also at the moment, even we've got, I don't know how many electric hypercars we have at the moment, 4, 5, I don't know.
About that, isn't it? I think,
something like that of the main ones. But I don't believe they've sold that many.
No, I hear similar. Yeah, I hear similar. And the acceleration is, I've driven one, which is the Pininfarina Battista. The acceleration's terrific, and actually the torque vectoring it does around corners and stuff like that, it didn't feel totally finished and set up, because I don't think it was. But the way it can move itself around and shuffle power around the motors in the corner is really cool, and that's more interesting and actually more engaging than just the speed. Because by the time you felt the acceleration once, you go, "Oh, well, that was amazing." Yeah. But it's actually what you can do with it by putting power where you want, when you want, that is the more interesting bit. And the way it drove in corners excited me more than the way it went down a straight.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, is the ground up EV sports cars or road cars or whatever, but just built from zero and removed any existing hangovers from a combustion engine, styling, etc., whatever. And just go, what cool stuff can we do?
What cool stuff can we do? Yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see what the next gen Porsche Cayman is like. when that's battery electric, because the Taycan is terrific, but it does feel a large car.
Yes,
but I think I would find one more. I do find one more engaging to drive than a Panamera, and they do a similar thing. And I really like the way a Taycan goes down the road.
Those two, I drove this like stupid versions of each: Turbo SE hybrid Panamera and Turbo S Taycan. It's naming stuff, but drove those both to back. It was at Millbrook, and I got out of the Taycan and was like, I would have for me, the range is not quite there. It's not quite there for me for that car, but I would have a Taycan over a Panamera.
Yeah, I think
especially a hybrid one.
I
just thought it was a better car.
Yeah, I think so. I think the best Panamera is probably pure internally combusted. Because that's the lightest. Usually, the best version is the lightest one, and that's certainly the case with the Panamera, I think. And I'm with you. That I do think there will come a time when we look back on the battery technology in these cars, and we'll think the range wasn't good enough and the weight was too much. At some point we'll be look back going, we had to do this, but actually we were making the best of limited technology at the time, which is maybe inevitable. Things get better, so of course we will look back. But I think people look back and go, "Cool, blimey, that was." Do you remember having to wait? I drove back from Somerset last night. I'm running a Polestar 2, which I took down to Somerset for the weekend, and needed to stop on the way back to charge. It would have been. It wouldn't have even been. It would have been marginal to get back to a bunch of chargers that I know well on the way back that are really powerful up on the A34. And I thought, no, I better charge while I'm down here. And it's Sunday evening in the West Country, so of course there's loads of people coming back to, the southeast of England. And went to one charger, wouldn't connect. And the others were all full. Went to another one, didn't work at all. Went to another one, nabbed the last one, and 3 or 4 people turned up while I was there. And you just get to the stage of thinking it's still not good enough. And for the first 3 or 4 weeks of having this car, I couldn't charge at home, and that's a real worry. Is the number of people who cannot charge an EV at home. At some point, by the time they're driving an EV, that square's got to be circled, because it's or the other way, whatever it is. But anyway, that's got to be sorted, because
they looked. I saw something. Could have even been in Autocar. I don't know. I think maybe on Twitter or something. And a council or someone from their house, they couldn't park the car outside. They could park the car outside the house, but it was like free parking. And they'd cut through the pavement just a little channel.
Oh, a little channel.
Just a little hole. Yeah, and then ran the cable through there, because that's one of the things everyone's moaning that you can't run cables
because they're trip hazards or whatever. That's quite a neat idea, that, isn't it? A little channel or some kind of weird gantry, which would also be a bit of a clumsy solution. But the little channel,
I think
is quite
a little channel
idea, I think.
that you can drop the cable into. You could do that in front of every single house.
Yes,
and that would the number they were talking about was like 30% extra people could charge at home.
Oh, it's a big difference, isn't it? Yeah,
makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. But it's interesting. I was chatting to an engineer this week. Can't remember what he was called. We were talking about EVs and charging and different things. And one thing he brought up, which I thought was quite interesting, was he was saying, as much as people believe the opposite, having a heavy EV is not a massive disadvantage. Because
in terms of
apparently
the way it drives.
In terms of range.
Oh, yes. No, yes. Yeah.
Because of apparently regen braking is something like 90% efficient. There are some caveats on that, but it's pretty efficient. And then as long as then it's down to frontal area, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you're up to moving.
From my memory of aerodynamics lectures, I think 30 to 40% of, and this was an internally combusted car, 30-40% of all of the things that hold a car back is aerodynamic drag. And then and that was on an internally combusted car, which has got a lot more friction in the drivetrain than an EV, so it may even be more in an EV. And yes, knowing that I wanted to get back to Tot Hill services yesterday, I sat behind a truck on the A303 for a bit and watched my anticipated battery on arrival go from 0% to 2% just by cutting out that bit of drag. And if you can, I've got a thing for small cars. If you can reduce the frontal area of a car, you absolutely should do. Which is the problem with SUVs having undone basically all of the aerodynamic, all of the efficiency, thermal efficiency that internally combusted cars have gone through the last 2 decades has basically been undone by the fact that people have bought more SUVs. So we're in a place of emitting as much CO2 as we would have done had we made no changes to cars at all over the past couple of decades.
Yeah,
not that I'm condoning going around and slashing the tyres of SUVs.
No, that's someone else's property.
It's one of these things. Why it attacks the private individual and makes their lives considerably worse for something that is not necessarily their choice. My problem is that is the private individual is always the one who ends up suffering as the result. You shouldn't fly to Portugal on holiday. Somebody will say, "Well, hang on a minute. Why not?
It's cheaper.
Why not? It's why shouldn't I go? Why shouldn't people be able to do nice things? The technology should be there, and the legislation should be there to encourage us to find ways that we are allowed to do things. We shouldn't stop doing things that we've been, that the world has allowed us to do. The modern world has allowed us to do. It's. I don't think reducing travel. I don't think reducing people's ability to get around and see other people and engage with other people and create amazing things. The vaccines for coronavirus were invented in Germany by people who had migrated to Germany. They had traveled to Germany from somewhere else and then found a life there. Travel is brilliant. Travel's what we should all do because it encourages scientific and political and everything.
People need to move around.
People need to move around, and people should be allowed to move around as freely as they possibly can, as much as they possibly can, to engage with other people around the planet. It makes the world smaller. It makes the world better. The idea that you should suddenly not do stuff really winds me up. We should find ways that people can do stuff, not stop people doing stuff.
Yeah, just change it, and then make it better, sort of thing. I know who it was. It was David Tuig. Hello.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Who's a very big fan of the small car. Creator of the A110. Yeah.
Yes, and a bunch of small city cars and things as well. But I also posed the question because I thought it's very interesting for the EV space. It's like, how far can we go on efficiency of an EV, like compared to now? Because you look at like that Mercedes project that came out recently, and I find it quite reassuring that they, at least from a marketing turn, are pushing out this, we're going to make our cars more efficient. We're not going to talk about range. We're not going to talk about putting 150 kilowatt hour batteries into cars. We're going to talk about doing more with what we've got. And I posed the sort of question of like, where we are now in let's say a sensible shaped vehicle. I have a little E208. I'm pretty sure that's definitely not the most efficient for its size, but it's okay. And I get about 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour ish. In town, I can get a bit more if I drive like super sensible. And you can get less if you drove at 80 or something. But where can we push that? And he was like, I don't think you can get double, but we've got quite a long way to go from ground up, fully built EVs. So at least like, rather than me getting 4, he's like, you might be able to get like 7 or 8 or something, 6, 7, 8.
Pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. And that's on current battery and motor technology?
That's just in terms of improving rolling resistance. And he's like, we've got a lot of way to go with things like bearings and stuff like that. It's like you could spend more and evolve the tech on the bearings and all those sort of little resistance type stuff. and, massaging the shape and whatever. Which, if we can get to that level, let's say your small car does 7 miles per kilowatt hour, which is basically, that's getting up to sort of double-ish what I would get. You don't need a big battery pack. And if you don't need a big battery pack, then you get all this other virtues, not necessarily being lighter, but just charging everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, takes less time to you get the choice, don't you? You can either reduce the battery size and have a nicer car to drive and a better packaged car, or keep the same battery size and you get more range. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's
stupid amounts of range.
You could. Yeah,
miles.
That Mercedes concept was EQXX. Is that the concept?
Yeah.
And so I think my understanding is battery electric vehicles are much more thermally efficient than internally combusted cars, which is why if you then go and drive one in winter, the range goes down because it's actually running closer to its efficiency already. Whereas an internally combusted car makes so much heat and so much noise that actually the power is not quite a byproduct, but it's always got heat to spare. So it doesn't matter if it's cold outside because it just gets too hot anyway. So the range is unaffected. And it's just then a characteristic, basically, of battery electric that they will vary depending on the weather a bit, because batteries are more susceptible. They don't generate heat to spare like an internally combusted car does, and it's difficult. It's difficult though, isn't it, to pitch to somebody you've been driving a car for the last 30 years and its range has been the same all year round. And here's a car now. And by the way, if you drive in winter, it won't go as far as it will in summer. People understandably will go, is that better? Is it really better?
But doesn't sound better.
It doesn't sound better. It doesn't sound better. It sounds less convenient to me. Yes, and to an extent it is. But the battery on my smartphone doesn't last as long as the battery on my old Nokia 9210.
It's true.
But it does a lot more, so that's okay. So I
you can plug it in
because it does better things. Yeah. So yes, so we just got to. I think that they've just got to do better things than the alternative, which is difficult because batteries are expensive. So it's hard, and they're up against something that's been developed ruthlessly for 120 years in a very tightly regulated industry. So it is, it's
a tricky one.
It's a tricky one. Yeah, it's not totally straightforward. But I like a lot of EVs, and if I can fit into a life with one, given the kind of mileage and driving that I do, they're fine. They are fine for most people. And actually, since I've been able to charge it at home, it is. I can. Yeah, it's not. It's occasionally a bother, but most of the time it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like it could be the thing for most people, but there are like quite a lot of asterisks at the moment. You need to know, and you need to be a bit techie.
And most of those will go away, and some won't. Some will, some will stay, but that's okay because there'll be little niche choices for those who's for the use case that doesn't quite suit.
Maybe
and they will be fine for most people.
Long range, and you have a hydrogen car or something. Or
and what frustrates me is the idea that everybody's determined they're right about a particular technology, and I can't be asked. It's just that there's going to be there are a lot of technologies. Battery electric will be fine for most. It will be fine for most road users. That will be okay. And the next generation of battery will come along, and that will make it even better again. And like you say, if these efficiencies, like David Tuig's talking about, improve things again, and things will get easier and better, and so on and so forth. But just the dismissal of other technologies and taking a side and go say, I hate all electric cars, or I hate all internally combusted cars. I hate hydrogen. I hate the just there's a lot of choice. There's a lot of choices from the smallest personal mobility through to the largest. There's going to be a lot of options, and you just choose the one that's right for you. And hopefully, as long as I can't be bothered to have the argument about it, because some are better at other things than others, and ultimately they're all personal mobility, and that's what interests me. They're all cars or motorbikes or e-scooters or anything in between. all of those things.
There
are
are
what I'm into.
There's benefits and downsides to all things, all brands, all types of cars. And I've always found it interesting from the, let's say, the camera world of people that got militant about. I never met anyone that was really doing stuff and like getting on with life in their space that was insanely like brand loyal about a particular they liked their stuff. They might have used a certain thing, but they would never just like neg everything else and be like, no, that's crap because it's a whatever. Like, no, I've just chosen to use this. It's the best tool for the job. And I just get on with my life.
I think you're right. Yeah, from the photographers I know, I agree. You find somebody use this or that, or are trying trying another brand, and they go, I really like this about it. Yeah, really like this and this. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, that objectivity gets a bit lost, and I find that a bit frustrating.
I think I'm getting there with car brands. Like, if you'd asked me 10 years ago whether I would have owned a Peugeot, I would have probably said no.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But now I look at Peugeot and go, I quite like the cars. And I look at companies like Kia. If you said you might buy a French car or a car from somewhere else other than Germany for your main vehicle, I'd just be like, no, you're mental. But now there's so many other good options out there. So that is no longer... And even the quality, it used to be, yes, you get the German build quality, etc. But then that's not necessarily the case now. Like,
no, I don't think it is. And I think if you look at customer satisfaction and reliability surveys, that's certainly not the case. Yeah, I remember being on a Kia Rio, I think, launch in about 2003 or 4 or something like that. And one of the honchos from whenever they were certainly together with Hyundai at the time. Hyundai Kia was a thing, and they were saying, we want Hyundai and Kia together to be one of the top 5 global car companies. And they were nowhere near it. Certainly in Europe, nowhere near at the time. And I remember sort of, people looking around going, really, top 5? Really? Does that? And there they are at like, 3 or 4 or whatever it is, because they just make great cars and then go, you know what, we're so confident, here's a 7-year warranty. In the way that some European manufacturers would not even dare. 7 years, 100,000 miles. Crikey, what? And they're well priced and everything else, So it's, and I am intrigued as to whether the sort of premium manufacturers, whether that prestige of the badge, how long that lasts. And if it lasts indefinitely or not, because they've moved down into the market space of Peugeot, Kia, others. You can buy a compact SUV from Audi or Mercedes, or you could buy a Kia or a Peugeot, same size, same price, same equipment. Why, therefore, does a premium German badge still have some premium and prestige and kudos attached to it?
And with this shift towards EVs, all these brands have had an opportunity to go, let's nail this. Right? Because if they've not made an EV and we're on generation 2 by the time they start, we're going to be way better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a really interesting time. And there's so many cars, mate. There's so many cars and so many brands. And it's the most interesting time to report on the industry since I've been reporting on the industry. I think.
Yeah, so much change.
And from EV, from EVs at one end to Restomods at the other, there are so many cars. There are so many cars.
So I had a little look through the magazine this week, and this is going to come out way out of sync, so it doesn't matter. It's not particularly news related, but I came across this on YouTube, and it was like the Autocar, and the title of the video is like best brand at the moment, and it was like BMW wins best brand, and then at the end there's a little line, and then you put sponsored. So it reads as if it's a sponsored video that BMW paid for.
So I can So I tell you what I can tell you what's happened there is we do our Autocar awards, and we sit down. All the journalists sit down, and we do the awards, and then it's all decided and it's done. And then at some point, somebody last week has said, somebody in the sales team has been approached by BMW and said, "Have you done a video for the awards?" And we've gone, "No, not really."
Yeah.
And I think I haven't seen this. I haven't seen it on YouTube yet. How it looks, but they've then basically
they've sponsored the video,
taken out an advert effectively taken out an advert on the back of the fact that they have won an award.
Yeah.
So let me have a look at videos. Autocar 22. Oh, there we go. Yes, why BMW is our best manufacturer. Sponsored. Yeah, but I can tell you with great confidence, that those things are decided well in advance and independently by a bunch of journalists, and the fact that somebody's taken out an advert afterwards. It's a bit. In a way, it's like a film advert appearing in a newspaper with 5 stars. By the way, this paper said it's a 5-star film. It's the same as that, basically.
I get it.
That's what's happened. But it does. Actually, I could and would often get on my high horse about the difference between editorial content and sponsored content and everything else. And and one thing I do like about Autocar and Haymarket is they do make a distinction between the two. Very, very plain.
Yeah. So I just saw in the video that I think it was like 2 cars. M5 CS, I've not driven.
Yep.
Gets rave reviews. Okay, you've not driven it, fair enough.
I think our only 5-star road test car from the past 12 months.
And then when you look at the car, as sort of from an outsider point of view, I've not driven it. It doesn't make a lot of sense as a car, because you go, well, surely that maybe the M3 that's like the M5 CS would make more sense, like having a big, massive luxury barge that's only got 4 bucket seats in it or whatever,
and then making it more hardcore and less luxurious.
And making it more hardcore and less luxurious. But it sounds like the suspension has got better.
Yes, that's my understanding. I haven't driven the CS, but my colleagues say it is. Yeah, it's no less comfortable, and it did win. I'm contractually obliged to pretend other car magazines don't exist, but it did win another magazine's Car of the Year late last year, I believe.
Yeah.
So
and the other car, have you driven the iX?
Yes, I have.
An iX.
An iX, yeah.
What is that like? That's quite interesting. I think it's in the video somewhere, but
I think so. Yeah, I did do a video on it. It's good. It's good. It's incredibly comfortable. It's incredibly refined. The ride is terrific, and it's very isolated. And there are very few cars, I think, that are as good on a motorway. It's incredibly quiet. It's very spacious. It feels suitably luxurious. BMW has retained a separate controller for the iDrive system. So although it's got a big touchscreen, you've also got the knob on the center console, which some other manufacturers no longer have to their, which is a shame, I think. So it still does that sensible stuff. I like it. Yeah, I think it's an interesting looking car. I think it's
it looks awful. I'm just going to say it, but
I think it's really. I've written about it in that sort of what on earth are they thinking? Is it meant to look like this? Because some design sketches don't look that bad. When you see the early design sketches, go, oh yeah, that looks quite good, and then you see it. I see it in the flesh, and I just think, I don't see this. But it's beyond the aesthetic. It is it's a really interesting and good luxury battery electric vehicle. It's a cool thing. I've got some colleagues who have been out last week driving the really fast version.
Okay,
it's fast. It felt quite fast to me already.
They're all quite quick, aren't they?
I think so. So that'd be interesting to know what that's like. But it's a cool. It's a good car.
The thing I sort of picked up from just hearing about it, reading about it, whatever, was the point you pointed out about the sort of luxury side. It sounds like they've really embraced the let's make this a luxurious experience. And that to me is really interesting, because a lot of cars slightly fall down on that element, even the ones that should. I'll have told people by the time this comes out. I bought an E63 Estate. Stupid decision, but decided that I needed a bigger car for the family stuff. Didn't particularly fancy any of the SUVs, possibly a Range Rover at some point, but all sorts of Range Rover issues. And was like, yeah, okay, I should get an E-Class. And then was like, going to get a sensible one. Decided not to do that. Why not have a stupid engine? But on the motorway, it's got a lot of tyre roar. Like,
oh yes, okay, yeah.
It's okay, but it's definitely not like super refined. Town speed, it's good. But then that's one of those things you go, well, this car should be quite refined. I know it's got the stupid engine, it's got big tyres on it, but like, sort this out somehow.
But it still should be. The idea is you jump in it and you do 150 miles an hour between Hanover and Stuttgart. That's in comfort, and with low noise levels. Yeah, and I think that's accentuated in an EV because you don't get the engine noise in the background. So you notice the wind noise and the tyre noise more. And I think that's, and certainly I live quite near, you may see the shadows going behind me, I live quite near a busy road. Yeah. And you can't tell the difference when an EV's going past to when a
and that's quite interesting, isn't it?
They make the same amount of wind noise and road noise. So if you can find a way to reduce the engine noise inside an EV, then you've got something very refined. But it's all about that. It's all about the glass and just getting rid of that low frequency hum. Of the tyres. And I think you're right. I saw some people who are doing an advanced simulator the other day. And they said actually a lot of manufacturers are focused quite heavily on ride quality and noise levels at the moment because you notice those things a bit more when you don't have the engine anymore. Early EVs were not great from ride quality either. So not just you don't just notice the road noise. They also, because they're heavy and engineers didn't quite have a handle on the dynamics, they were putting some quite thick anti-roll bars on. I think I heard David Pook, who's the ride handling engineer, talk about this, and he said, actually they're much better these days. The centre of gravity and centre of roll is very low, so you can actually have quite a small anti-roll bar and the car still not be too rolly and too loose, and that therefore improves the ride quality. So I think we're getting there. They seem to be getting better and better.
Stuff's getting better.
To drive. But you're right. An E63 of a car of that kind should have a mega engine, hot rod handling, but also be very quiet when you want it to be.
And the RS6 is noticeably better at that.
Is it? That's interesting.
Which is odd. And they're all on stupid wheels. They've all got like the RS6 is like 22s help. Or something.
Yeah, it doesn't help. Yeah, that latest I drove and also I think as importantly was driven around in the new Range Rover the other week, and everything was on 23s. It's great, but I think the short wheelbase and in its cheaper forms are where it's purer to what a Range Rover always was, but I think is actually probably a more convincing car. I think it does that better than it does the job of being a luxury car. And I don't know whether Jaguar cancelling the XJ, the upcoming XJ, which they were going to make and have decided not to. I don't know whether at that point somebody went, well, you know what, maybe the Range Rover needs to do some of that luxury car chauffeuring thing, be driven around in the back of it, but it doesn't feel like it does that as convincingly as it does what a Range Rover always did, which is be a luxury SUV for people sitting in the front. Which it's still at which the lower levels, but which is still £100,000. It's an expensive car, but at that lower level, it's still brilliant. I think absolutely terrific. But when you start to say, oh yeah, here's the long one. It's only got 4 seats and it's got a table in the back. And you sort of sit in the back on 23s and go, is this really, I don't know if this is really isolated enough for that. But it's if you get the right variant, it's brilliant, terrific.
Yeah, because they made quite a big thing about the level of isolating your environment has gone up. They say significantly, and then the noise cancelling headrests and stuff like that.
That's right.
Does it feel suitably chilled? Wafting around.
The smaller one does. Yeah, it feels terrific, and it's what I like about the Land Rover Defender that came out sort of 2 years ago is that it's incredibly capable off-road, but it's also very isolated and refined. And when you go off-road, it tries to make life easy for you. So it's not like a Jeep where you get levers to prod and pull and you get really involved. It's not a hobbyist 4x4.
Yeah.
It's, if you've been driving it all day for work and you're going down and checking on some fields elsewhere or driving on a construction site or whatever, it just makes your life very easy. So at the end of the day, you're not as stressed and ruffled. And the Range Rover takes that lot to the next. It takes that sort of capability and it adds more luxury and refinement and isolation to it. So yeah, it does. It really does. And if you are using it from that traditional perspective that you'd use a Range Rover for, I think it's unsurpassed. But I think if you were looking for a luxury limousine, that's not necessarily where I go. But it's hard if you're asking a lot of those cars. The Bentley Bentayga is asked loads. I don't think I've said this. I've written this and said it before a few times. I don't think there's a car that's asked to do more than a Bentayga, because it's got to be a luxury car. It's got to have a near 200 mile an hour top speed. It's got to tow 3.5 tons, and it's got to go off road a bit. If you're asking a car to do all of those things, that's really hard. If you just say, all right, you don't have to do 200 miles an hour, you suddenly make life much easier for yourself. So
like your Range Rover.
And I think that's where the Range Rover is. It's at that stage where it's a car you could take to an opera, and then the next morning drive down to the bottom field, and then go to the shop, and then go somewhere else, so pick up somebody from school, and then come home, and it will do all of those things. But I don't know whether you'd want to spend loads of time in the back of it, and it doesn't have to do 200 miles an hour as a sports car. So it's asked to do less, and it's better for it.
Yeah, it's that one is so key. I've driven a few of various SUVs, whether it's like Cayenne, Bentayga, stuff like that. And then you get in the Range Rover and you're like, oh no, this one's actually like comfy. Like,
it's that sort of hello old friend as you get in it and set off and go,
and you go around corners and it rolls a bit and whatever. But like,
the 50-yard test.
They do the ride quality and like that sort of plushness better, or that part of it is better than all of the other ones at that. No, it won't go around the Nürburgring that fast.
No, exactly.
So what?
But that's right, isn't it? Because if I'm going to go to the Nürburgring in one, I've got a trailer on the back with a sports car on it, so that's fine.
Yeah, or I'm getting in my race car or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. What do you think is the comfiest family vehicle of any value? So you need to be able to put a decent amount of luggage in it.
Rolls-Royce.
Cruise around.
The big Rolls-Royce Phantom, I suppose, if money is no object.
Taxi.
But I know. But the isolation in that is unsurpassed. It's really spectacular. Really spectacular. New Defender is very good, I think. Actually, if you were talking a sensible-ish, I mean, I know they are expensive, but a sensible-ish price. I think they're sensible-ish price.
They're 50.
There's context in it, I think. Really, that's the truth of it. But they start at 40. But by the time you've got a nice one, you spend quite a lot more. They're very refined, very isolated, and very practical. Well, actually, the long one is very practical. The short one is surprisingly impractical for quite a big car. I went away to Wales for in one, and it's sort of in a short one, and I sort of sticking stuff in the back and putting the back seats down again. It's not a lot of room. It's not a lot of room back here. There's less room in this than there is in my 2005 short wheelbase Defender, which is a much smaller car, much smaller car. It's about the length of a Golf and the width of a Fiesta, and it can seat 6 people. So how is this? How is this new Defender, which will seat 4 and a bit and no luggage? It's a real. I drove with Max, our photographer, over to the Bugatti factory in the east of France, and it's terrific on a motorway, even a short one on knobbly tyres. It is amazingly refined, but you need a long one if you want family
space.
Car. And then it's big. Then it's big for parking spaces and stuff like that. But
that's
I
it.
do love them.
I was very surprised. I had one for a little bit, and it's just nice. It's like in comparison to the old one, and I drove an old one recently, and you're like, what? Hang on, when did they stop making these? Like,
yeah, which is it's interesting, isn't it? It's like it gave them a real problem with where to pitch all of the different models in the range, I think, because they carried on making the old one for so long that when you make a new one, you go, well, what is it? And has a sort of so effectively the new Defender is kind of picks up from where the Discovery 4 left off, really, and then you get the Discovery 5 and go, well, what does this do? Because if you push it too far up market, it's a family wagon, 7-seat family wagon, but if it's expensive, isn't that a Range Rover?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, the Land Rover range does okay, does good numbers, and there are some very core models that will do very well for them, and it's much more sensible than the Jaguar range, which they still not entirely sure Jaguar Land Rover knows what to do with. But yeah, it's not a straightforward range. But Defender for me feels like Discovery 5 effectively. It leads on from where the old Discovery was, which I think which I still think is a terrific car, and it gets better and better looking all the time. I just looks fit for purpose. I love it. Discovery 3 and 4. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I heard a while ago that they're considering taking the Defender range and like adding models above within Defender range.
Interesting. Yeah,
like a more kind of like a Range Rover, but a Defender type. Which you then go, well, okay, hang on a minute, what's going on?
Yeah, and but to the same extent, I do think. I think. Well, actually, what's the difference between an Audi Q2, 3, 4, 5, 7? I don't know. And sometimes I'll look at them and go, or I'll look at the Mercedes range of SUVs and not necessarily, certainly at a glance, go, is that a C, or is that a? And it just, and that they look slightly different and are of different sizes. So would it be that bad if Land Rover had extended the range?
I don't think it's a bad idea.
A bit, might be okay. Might work.
I think
might work quite nicely.
I think I would love it if all manufacturers, pretty much to every size of car, did and it could even look exactly the same, did like a normal level interior refinement, and then they did like a high interior refinement version.
Like Ford's Vignale spec, which has a higher.
Is that like that?
Well, yeah. So that's kind of their thing. Like, I don't know, might have been Gear, I suppose, back in the day. But yeah, Vignale is supposed to be the or Vignale, as it's commonly known in the office, is kind of like the more luxurious version.
Okay, yeah.
But you don't see very many. But you'll occasionally see one. It'll say Vignale on the back in this sort of italic chromed font. And I always thought that actually that might work really nicely on a Fiesta. I'm not sure the sales figures necessarily back it up. But I'd love a small car. I'd love a small, really luxurious small car. I think that would be terrific, that I can park really easily. Like I like minis, but I'd love to drive a Mini that had the same interior isolation as
a Range Rover.
We're not going to get to Rolls-Royce standards or Range Rover standards, but if it got closer, I'd be thrilled. It'd be amazing.
I think you could do a lot of the things.
I could drive a really small car. I can park where I like, and is as quiet as a really big car on a long journey.
I think we're getting.
I'd love that.
With EVs, we're starting to see this.
Yeah, we could be getting.
It's like EVs, definitely around town, because you've got no engine noise. Like they are quite quiet, and for all the reasons we've discussed before, they're starting to make them more refined. I think.
Yeah.
When we get to Gen 2, because I don't think we haven't really had Gen 1 of like ground up small EVs.
I think that's fair. Yeah. Well, Nissan might sort of argue differently, might they? I suppose because they've had the Leaf for so long. But I think you're right. It still feels like most manufacturers are still nudging into it because batteries are so expensive that it's hard to make a small car or make any money out of an EV.
And then we're getting crossovers. Hard to make money out
of any small car. Yeah, hard to make money out of any small car, let alone an EV.
It's what was it?
But it would be cool, wouldn't it? It would be great.
It would be cool.
The E208 is pretty refined, isn't it?
It's not bad. It's pretty good. Like it's actually pretty good. It's
and in terms of coming to a stop and pulling away and all that sort of thing, the in-town smoothness because because it's seamless. That is, I'm always impressed by that. I always love that. I hate sitting in traffic, but if I'm going to sit in traffic in anything, an EV is perfect because you just ease rolling very gently, very smoothly. I love that.
The sort of, can you my driveway has a bit of an angle on it, and sort of reversing round a corner up an incline in a car at low speed, I feel like is like an incredible test of drivetrain and refinement of calibration, and nothing gets close. Like, some cars are good at it. I was surprised how good the Bentleys were at it. But nothing does that like an EV.
No. And the speed with which you can knock between forward and reverse in a car park, just sort of tapping the thing forward and then backwards. If you're sort of shuffling into a space, you get out of waiting people's way so much more quickly. They've got some real key advantages around town. And if the dynamics and the isolation get better and better, I'll be thrilled. I want a car the size of a Mini with the interior isolation of a Ghost would be ambitious, but
why not?
Something better. But why not? Yeah, let's aim high.
Aim high, and then if they come in at 50% of that, you're like,
that would be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm lining up. So my E208 is a lease, and that I've still got a while. I've still got like another year, but I'm like, okay.
Are you thinking already?
What's going to come out when that runs out of its lease?
Do you enjoy that phase of the thinking / buying / leasing process? That sort of build up.
I feel like that's more fun than the buying. Like the what do I want to buy? What are the options? Can I make this work? Can I make that work? And then doing all the research and driving things and reading reviews and whatever. It's more fun than the actual purchase and collection and drive home, I think.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair. Wouldn't disagree.
And you can spend endless hours planning and thinking about, once you've got it, you've got it. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got it now.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
But like,
does it live up to expectation now? That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know? Is it,
But I don't think we'll see I don't think we'll get too many small EVs in the next year. I can't think of any that are sort of coming that might nudge it out of the way.
No, I can't off the top of my head. No, I always know people put me in the spot by asking me that sort of thing, and I just think I can't remember. I'll just go and look it up. But yes, I'm not. Nothing suddenly strikes. What is a shame is that the BMW i3 will no longer be made this year.
Yeah,
possibly gone out of production already, actually. But feels like a car ahead of its time. That to me, as an EV, it never quite refined and rode well enough. Actually, it was never quite quiet or comfortable, really enough. I don't think. But it was an early EV with a very clever stiff body. So inevitably that was a bit noisy. But
there is no replacement for that.
No,
and there's no i3, but there's nothing even close.
No, which is a real shame. I think funny enough, that awards you were talking about earlier, we Autocar teamed up with National Motor Museum at Bewley and asked a load of readers to pick 5 cars that they thought would be classics in 50 years' time, and I think the i3 was one of the top 5 basically, and I think it really will be. I think in 20, 30 years we'll feel the way we do about maybe not quite the Mini, but things like the Mini or the Audi A2 and things like that. I think people will go, oh yeah, that was a real benchmark, groundbreaking car that will be interesting for decades to come. I think
so, and it's the start of the new era of EVs
feels significant,
and whatnot.
And it's
what
fun.
Other cars were
and it's
in
good. What other cars were in there? Alfa Giulia Quadrifoglio, Alpine A110, the i3, the Land Rover Defender, and one more, which I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But all those, and you'd think, I'll be very happy to open the garage in 50 years' time and see any of those sitting in it. I think they're all interesting. I think they're all good. And
and the GR Yaris.
Oh, of course, the GR Yaris. Of course, yeah, of course. Which is a cool car.
In the sort of stupid value car, and I'm going to say, I don't know, plus 100 plus 100 to like infinity. What do you think we'll look at in 20 years time and go, those were the, like, some high marks, or not say high marks, but just standout cars?
Because of the way powertrains are going, I think we will look at the most spectacular engine stuff and remember that at the moment. So things like, I don't know, are you thinking that something like a Ferrari 458 Speciale would be too old for this?
No, I think that I think that for me that is one of the cars, but I don't know whether it's like my age and when it was sort of cool and stuff like that. But in my 20 car garage, 50 car garage, I would have a Speciale, and I would have it above any of the replacements to that car.
Yeah, I think I probably would too, just on the basis of how spectacular the engine is and how light the car is as a result. But I do love the handling balance of the 488 and the F8, because they've got so much more torque. They're so playable. There's such an outrageous chassis that you can chuck around more easily, I think, than the 458. But I agree. I think because of its precision and just because of the way that engine wails and everything, I think that would be the one. So I think in 20, 30 years, if you were looking at landmark cars now, it would be the most spectacular internally combusted stuff or the most groundbreaking EV stuff. So I think a Tesla Model S will be really interesting in 40 years. In fact, the original Tesla Roadster, it probably already is actually a really interesting potential classic car. That was the first one of the first EVs that I drove. But it was the interesting thing about it is, for a long time afterwards, we drove it from Autocar's office, which was Teddington at the time, and we drove it up to Myra Proving Ground in the Midlands. And it was one of the few EVs for several years afterwards that we could drive from the office to Myra and actually still do something useful when we got there. And charging infrastructure was rubbish at the time. We plugged it in a workshop, and you had to leave it for quite a long time. So we drove it up one day, did some pictures, and I think we did the testing the next morning, I think.
Yeah.
But it was one of the first cars to have an interesting, to have a proper range you could do something useful with. And I think the Model S will be a bit of a benchmark, one of those landmark cars for a little while.
Because it's the first main car from what is likely to be, and is now a massive
significant
company,
manufacturer. But one of the mainstream, if you like, for all of the disruptors and stuff. They're a car manufacturer like anybody else. So things like that. So I think, a Model S and probably something like an Audi RS6 at the same time, because you just go, God, this is wild. Can you imagine like a V10, one generation ago, whatever, 2 generations ago, RS6, a 2 and a bit ton V10 naturally aspirated, super saloon. What the heck? What is that about? I
think for me, the of cars that are interesting at the moment, I'm put off by the ones that are just, to me, seem chasing numbers. Now, and unfortunately, there are McLarens that I like, but like 675 LT, I thought was very good. Yeah. I've not driven the 765 LT, but 720S I thought was cool, but I got used to its party trick very quickly. And EVs are literally just taking those tricks and just kicking them down the road in a car that can seat 7 people and your luggage and whatever. Because you can get a Model X plaid and it's faster. It's just faster.
Yeah.
So
just fast. Yeah.
Doing that game to me is now, it's just, I just couldn't care less. It just...
No, it sort of democratizes that level of power in the end, doesn't it? Democratizes to an extent. I mean, powerful EVs are still expensive because they tend to come with big batteries, but to an extent, they'll all do it. You don't need an AMG to get that level of power. You don't need an M version. they're all ridiculous. And I think part of the reason is because if you want to be able to regenerate quite a lot of electricity as you lift off, or as you slow, then actually you kind of want a big motor to be able to do that, because then it can put a lot of energy back into the battery. And if you've got a big motor generator to generate a lot of energy under deceleration, well, as a byproduct, it gets loads of power going forwards. So it's just the way it is.
I wonder if that will change with tech, whether we'll get better at regenning off small motors.
I wonder. I don't know. I don't know. My suspicion is, things tend not to get less powerful as time goes on. So my suspicion is we'll just, the next generation sports car will have more than the last one, because I think there will be a little niche of manufacturers who can turn around and say, actually, this next generation car is lighter than the last one, and is a bit less powerful. Yeah, but here are the advantages, because it's got so much power, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's got 50 horsepower less than it had before, but when did you need all that you had before? When is 800 enough and 700 not enough? So I'm intrigued to see whether that is the case. But I think it's a hard thing for a marketing department to turn around and go, yeah, here's a new car. It's not
really
as powerful as the
hard.
other one.
But then you get things like, I think we're seeing definitely with Porsche, we're starting to see this, like, I think like a final hurrah, like a combustion engines are going, let's just make the fun ones. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
GT4 RS, for example, a car we never thought would exist.
No, exactly. No, wouldn't dare make a car that was faster than a 911, and here it is.
Have you driven it?
No, sadly not. No, I've heard it. No. I think I don't know when we will. There is. I know there is one. There are one or two press cars in the UK, but I could not drive one the other week because I was doing something else. I think I was away abroad doing something probably less exciting than 9,000 RPM in a GT4. It sounds mega. Yeah, it sounds mega. And I love the idea of the mid-engined. Yeah, I love 911s, but mid-engined cars are, from a dynamic perspective, if you were putting the engine wherever you wanted to, you'd probably put it there. You'd probably put it in the middle. That would be the best place to put it. So I imagine it's fantastic.
Yeah, and we've just seen the new, what is it, Sport Classic. The turbo, the rear-wheel drive turbo with a manual gearbox, which I like, and it sounds like we're going to get a few more things like that very soon.
I think that's probably true. Yeah, I think that's true.
And that one for me was
almost like brand new Restomods.
Yeah.
From the fact, just that little niche stuff, just for the weirdos among you, And I like the fact that the industry has got time for that. It's got time for thinking about people like us.
I would like to see that from more brands. I can't actually think of another brand that has done something.
No,
like
not that style. They don't,
and
I don't think they have the breadth of range to be able to do it. So Ferrari does not have a manual gearbox, and so most sports car manufacturers don't, do they? Which doesn't give them that option. And Lamborghini do some weird little nichey stuff, but they're all basically Huracans underneath it.
Yeah,
they're because there's not the diversity that you get in a 911, for example,
an example would be I think M5 CS is that sort of thing. Even though we sort of know it was going to happen, but it sounds like it's arrived and everyone's gone, oh, hang on a minute, this is actually quite special.
Yeah. I'd be intrigued to try an M5 which has got less stuff in it, just less of everything. Actually, here's an M5. We didn't put so much stuff in. Weighs 200 kilos less than another one. No, none of the seats are electrically operated. Or actually an M3 because it's a smaller package to do it in.
I would like an M5. This goes back to that topic with the Range Rover and stuff. I would like an M5 that's like limited to 130 miles an hour or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, because I don't go to Germany that often. And if I did, okay, I would like possibly be able to go faster. But let's just say 130. And then engineer the car, and it doesn't need to go around the Nürburgring.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Because an M5 to me should be really comfy. And I think they are pretty comfy if you're in Europe. But here they're
British
not.
roads are not. No, I ran one for a little while. Latest gen, just one before. I ran one. When did I ran one? Crikey. Anyway, I ran one for a month or two, and it was not the massive comfort fest that it
should be.
Like you, I think it kind of ought to be. Yeah, it was. It's reasonably comfortable, but I think our roads are poor. I was speaking to an engineer, a UK-based engineer, about this, and he says, sometimes we'd go to Germany, set up a car on some roads, do an initial dynamic assessment over there, do some durability work on the Nürburgring, a little bit of performance, handling stuff on the Nürburgring, set it up on the roads around it, and then you drive it back across France, get on the Channel Tunnel, get off the other side, and go, oh my God, this is terrible. Just like that, get on the M20 and go, no, this is not, no, sorry, we've got to undo everything we've just spent the last week doing. This is awful. And if you tune them, and I do, we might have talked about this last time, I think, more manufacturers should just go to Wales or the north of England and places like that and drive cars around and go, oh yeah, this is what, if you drive here, you will get great steering response and you'll get great body control and you'll get better suspension compliance from side to side, just because our roads are, not just because of potholes, partly because of potholes, but not just because of that. Our roads are crap, and they should. Not all cars translate to it, which is I do think does translate nicely. Is the Alfa Giulia Quadrifoglio, and even the GTA version, the really hardcore version, still drive it and go, yeah, this is compliant enough. This is nicely controlled. And I would have that over an M car in the UK for that reason, but not necessarily if I lived in Germany. And I can see, if you were writing for a German magazine, why an M3 might beat a Giulia. But in the UK, I put it the other way, and we're both right.
Yeah.
With different outcomes.
It's something I've thought about recently. I'm not massively into tuning vehicles too much. I had an M2 at one point, and I did the sort of just minor stuff for making it a bit better on track. And actually changed the suspension, and then realised that changing the suspension for what I did, I wanted it to be comfier, and then it didn't do both. Like, you couldn't do both. But I wonder with like how much of a difference, let's say my E-Class, if I took that to a specialist and said, I want this to be better in the UK, I suspect the only main benefit would be would actually be wheel size, because I think the suspension is okay, but I think it's the wheels that are the biggest, the width and the height of the rims.
Yeah,
is the biggest
a little
problem.
bit of and I think it's funny. So I get my information from engineers I follow on social media, but I remember David Pook saying, well, actually, low profile tires are not necessarily a barrier to decent ride quality, but as David Tuhig, who you have also interviewed, said this morning, actually a little bit of sidewall helps quite a lot of cars. And I do, and I think, just going down, I get why manufacturers do it, because we all buy big wheels because they look great, but actually going down an inch or two and adding a bit of sidewall in, I think helps a lot of cars. I think,
and often,
much
let's say with a German car, if you look on the German website to configure the car, you can get smaller wheels. Yeah.
We do. We are weirdly obsessed in the UK with high equipment levels. We're always, from my understanding, is the UK buyers will tick more options than most other nationalities. And I don't know if that's because more cars are financed. I don't know if that's the case, but I think, as somebody once, I know somebody buying a Triumph motorbike, and they said, "Do you want the fixed box panniers on the back? The big stainless steel, really cool looking one, aluminium, cool looking ones?" And he went, "How much are they?" Well, they're £800. He's like, "Well, I don't want those." Those are actually, they're £4 a month, because you're buying on finance. You go, "Oh, well, in that case, fine." And if that comes down to 21-inch alloys and pearlescent paint, and I'll have the carbon seats on the M3 with a weird little carbon bit in the middle, and actually it adds £20 a month because it sells easier in 3 years' time. Yeah, maybe you do, and maybe that's why. I don't know, but
I wonder if it will change. I think,
I do,
because ride quality is definitely becoming more of a thing. I made sure I had the facelift because the ride is better, and it's actually better. And I wonder, next iteration, whether all these things, people will go like, actually, most people will order the 19s.
Yeah.
With EVs, it's interesting because you lose range.
With sidewall.
Different.
Oh, yes, it does make a difference.
Rims and different designs.
Yeah. And yes, wheel weight will make a difference, but also, just rolling resistance based on what tires you can get and everything else. It's and we're back into that. They're so efficient that you make a difference.
Yeah.
With what you do, with the small details that you do to them. I do wonder actually, had we done some of the things that we're now doing on EVs, so that Mercedes EQXX, its aerodynamic efficiency, and that new EQS S class sized battery electric vehicle that Mercedes is making has got a drag coefficient of 0.18 or something like that, which is very, very slippery. Had we done that over the past, had we not all just bought bigger and bigger crossovers and everything else, had we done a bit of that in the last 20, 30 years, would have burnt quite a lot less stuff.
Significantly less.
And would have made smaller, lighter cars. We might have had more fun as well, actually. And, the road surfaces might have not suffered quite as much. And if you drive a small car, you've just got more road to mess around in. It's the number of times I drive a very big car down some UK lanes and just go, breathe in. As you go past something else, and you just in a way that you don't. It's so much less stressful in a small car because you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. Yeah. Underrated, I reckon.
It is what it is, unfortunately, at the moment. And they say you can vote with your feet, but you sort of can. But I don't know whether the general public. I don't think they have the information. And maybe that's not giving them the credit, but I feel like a lot of people I know just buy cars because that's what people have.
Yeah, and there are things to be said for crossovers, and as a family car for putting pushchairs and car seats into, or if you are older and you want to slide in, it's much easier to slide in and out of a car that's at your level than it is to fall in and out of fall in and climb out of a low car. So there's lots of reasons that people buy crossovers and SUVs, and many of them are justifiable, but they do, inevitably with a bigger frontal area, they'll burn more stuff. And the difference between a Peugeot E208 and an E2008 is more marked, I think, than an internally combusted 208 and a 2008. I think.
Yes,
because I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Small differences you just notice it in an EV. You drive 5 miles an hour faster, your range drops like a stupid amount.
Yeah.
Which is the difference between getting home and not getting home. If it was just, I just got fed up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then
and that's giving an interesting, I'm not sure how enjoyable I'm finding it, but sometimes that it's a bit of a challenge to go, right, am I going to stop for 5 minutes for a coffee and fill up? Or would I get home quicker if I didn't stop at all? And just went a bit slower and sat behind this lorry for a while, and then got home with 2% of charge rather than stopping for a quick charge. And I've done that. I've had to do that a few times actually, and it's quite I don't know if I enjoy the stress of it or not.
That's it.
But it's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting challenge.
From a nerdy point of view, if I know I'm doing a return journey that is going to push it, like it's going to push the limit, do I approach the entire journey with the attitude of I want to get home? As in, I start driving reasonably sensibly from the beginning.
Yeah.
My brother was in a car, I think it was a little Toyota Yaris the other day, and he suddenly realised that he wasn't going to make it to the petrol station. But I asked him about it, and he didn't start driving slower or more sensibly until near the end. When he was like, I thought I was like a mile away. And I was like, why didn't you start driving like 10 miles an hour slower from the beginning? Because
it's not like it was a surprise to you. It's only got a certain amount of fuel. It's not like, it's not like, the range isn't unlimited. Yeah, it wasn't a shock. Surely.
That, I think in itself, is one of the main arguments against having an EV. If you're like, I quite like having a relaxed life where I get to make my own decisions, going like, you've got to get in this car and you are having to make the decision of, do I drive 10 miles an hour slower for the entire day?
Yeah. And this goes back Exactly. And this goes back decades to there was that old company car program on the telly where they interviewed a lot of company car drivers, and there was a lad going, "Who's got an I on the back, and I stands for important," and things like that. And it was a very funny documentary from, I think, the 1980s, late 80s or early 90s or something like that. And from memory, one of the people in it was saying, well, the thing about having a company car or a car, the thing about having personal transport is that you get to the end of the road in the morning and you're going to turn left and you go to work. That's what you're going to do. But you could turn right and drive and keep going and just take off and do what you want. And it's that level of freedom in mobility that the car, we've got very used to having, whether we use it or not. We've got very used to having, if the phone goes and I'm in the south and it's Gran and she's not very well in Scarborough, you can go. You just get in and you go. And that is at the moment what you don't quite have the same level of freedom in an EV. And it's not quite the same level of, I almost took my motorbike down to Somerset. I needed to bring some stuff back, so I didn't. And the weather was crap yesterday as well. But I would have had more freedom to go where and when I wanted. And as a driver or rider, because that's my thing, I really enjoy that. For a lot of people, I don't suppose they'll mind a bit of extra planning, because they know they go a certain distance or whatever. But I don't know. There is something about the sort of loss of flexibility, which I'm not massively, as much as I like EVs, as much as I've enjoyed having one. There's something about that.
I have an EV, but I wouldn't have just an EV. At the moment, there's no way on earth I personally would just have an EV. I sometimes it's like, you've got to drive really far. Like, I want to drive to, I don't know, Germany. I can just get in the car and fill it up. And if I want to drive really fast, I'll just fill up more often. But just get in and you go. I had the situation this morning, and it's the first time it's ever happened. I plugged in my AirPods last night in the charger. Got up this morning, apparently earlier than my phone thought I should get up, and it hadn't started charging them because it goes, but you normally get up at 8, not 7 or 6 or whatever. And they weren't charged at all. It hadn't even started charging in the slightest. And I got up and was like, what the fuck is this? That could happen to you with a car.
That's infuriating. Yeah. But I mean, it requires more, as people say, it requires a bit more planning.
It does.
And I know Andy Wallace lives in Buckingham, which is not far from here, and works quite a lot at the Bugatti factory in Alsace and east of France. He drives a Volkswagen ID3. And he drives it to the factory and back. And I think he stops for somewhere between half an hour and an hour to do that whole journey, because he starts with the full thing. And he enjoys the skill of it, and he doesn't mind the planning bit, because he's an endurance racing driver by trade effectively. So actually, it comes pretty naturally to him, I think. And but it doesn't suit everybody, and I enjoy it quite a lot, but I don't enjoy it all the time. I know I don't, but not always.
It needs to be.
I just, like driving around
different.
America. Yeah, it is different. It is. Driving around America is easy because there's a petrol station every 5 yards. For the unlimited road trip, you can go anywhere you want, whenever you want. It's an extraordinary thing to make the shift in the UK, where where we're effectively quite a small country. Is relatively straightforward. To make the big shift over there will take a long time, I think.
Yeah, quite different. And actually, you get a different sort of level of flexibility, because whenever I get in the car here, the electric car, it's generally it's full.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to a petrol station, and in most of my usage of that car, it would always be a round trip. So I'd never, occasionally whatever, but now I pretty much only use that for something that will be a round trip. So I never go to a petrol station. And then I get in, let's say, one of the sports cars. I have no idea how much fuel is in it. And you might be like, I need to leave at 10 o'clock to get there at 2 o'clock. You get in the car and it needs filling up. And you're like, oh, fuck. Got to go to a petrol station. Got to touch this dirty fluid stuff. Like speak to some people, whatever. It doesn't take very long.
No, but it is. It does. It is.
But that is more
nice
inconvenient
to get in a fully charged and a warm car straight.
Warm.
First thing, first of all, they heat up very quick. They cool down very quickly. They heat up very quickly. They're very, very efficient and that sort of thing. And I like that. Yeah, I like that quite a lot. Yeah,
you win some, you lose some. Like it'll change. It's an interesting space, and yeah, it's moving quickly. Right. Well, I feel like we've covered most of the things I wanted to jibber jabber about. I normally wrap these up with 5 questions. You've been here before, so won't give you all 5 questions, but I can give you a condensed.
Give me as many as you like, because I listened to a couple of episodes over the weekend, so I've been thinking about them. Okay. That's the other thing, actually, of driving to Somerset. I could listen to some, which is
nice. Okay, yeah, I'll give you a few, because I actually have like more than the normal amount written down. If you could only drive one car for the rest of your life, and you get £500 something else on the side, so you get 2 cars.
So this is the interesting thing, is that I'd like that car to be able to do quite a lot. So I keep coming back to, there's a car that whose owners I follow on Instagram, called the Baja 911, which is sort of ramped up on soft. It's 911, but it's pumped up on soft springs, and it's got a bit of suspension travel and stuff like that. And I just think, God, that would be quite cool, because it could be made quite refined.
Yeah,
you could swap the suspension back off for something a bit lower and have quite a tidy track car out of it again, and it would do a lot of things. I think it would do a lot of things. So it'd be something like that, but whether it would be exactly that, I don't know. I've got an old Volkswagen Beetle which is in sort of Baja bug spec, and that could be that sort of thing. But it would be something like that. I'd try and get a car that could do a lot.
It looks like we're going to get something like that from Porsche.
Yeah, that would be that. Maybe that would be the one. Yeah, maybe that car would be the one. Yeah, because it'd be great to have a supercar, but then you can only do supercar things with it, and it would be very practical to have a big Range Rover, but then it's only doing Range Rover stuff. So I'd try and find something that could do a bit of everything.
Yeah. And there is a lot of flexibility of being in a lifted car. Like you can do things you can't do in a sports car.
Oh,
like,
and the whole
I don't know, just drive up the curb.
Supercars. Yeah, exactly. That really winds me up, the whole nose lift thing. I can't be asked. I don't care about an extra 5 kilos of downforce at 100 miles an hour. Take the same off the back and just make it a bit higher, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
And especially when it's carbon fibre at $5,000 a pop for the option. Oh, crikey, no. Maybe I'd feel differently if I had $300,000 to burn and a big collection of cars. Maybe I wouldn't bother so much, but I don't know. They just feel slightly too unusable for most situations. Most of them.
But then some lifts are really quick, like Ford GT.
Oh, that's amazingly fast.
Click.
Yeah, that's spectacular. It's an event. Yeah. I'll make an exception for that, because it's a racing car anyway. So yeah, exception for the Ford GT.
Okay, best value car under 50k.
Ooh. Depends what you're. I think it depends slightly what you're using it for. I think as a fun sports car, I'm told the I haven't driven the GR86 yet, but I'm told they're fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think from fun for pound, one of those. And if you are a company car user and you want the best value car, it's probably something like a Kia EV6 or maybe a Tesla Model 3, because with a Tesla you get the supercharger network, which is great.
Yes,
makes it actually that's a real terrific reason for having a Tesla over anything else. I think it's still at the moment.
Yeah, it is, and there are rumours that we're not part of all this what Europe wants to do anymore, so we may not get this. But the fact that I wouldn't be surprised. It would be great if that opened up to other. Yeah. I picked up a Model 3 for our awards last week, and the guy in the shop was saying, yes, he thinks it's coming, but they hadn't been told when yet, but they think it's coming. If I was a Tesla owner, I'd be pissed. I might be a bit miffed about that. Yeah, I think I'd think, hang on a bit. I think I'd rather have it for myself. But as when you go past most supercharger stations, most of them are not busy all the time, are they? They've usually got a few. Although I went one the other day. So maybe it was, I can't remember where it was. I feel like it was on the M1 or something. And there was like 12 supercharging spots, and there was like 11 cars.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Ooh, wow. So that's the thing, isn't it? I think if I had a Tesla and I turned up to a supercharger thing and I found 4 non-Tesla cars and half the bays, and they were therefore I couldn't get on, I'd start to be a bit cheesed off about that, I reckon.
At least, though, being a Tesla, you would know it was full before you got there.
You would. Yeah, you would. That is a very fair point. You just carry on to the next one. Yeah, that's a good point. That system's terrific as well. That system's really good.
It would be cool to see more of that, because now stopping at where conventional petrol stations are, like, it's all a bit same. You might have an M&S, a Waitrose, or whatever, Shell type stuff. I would way rather charge my car at a cool little cafe. And like, there's no reason why you couldn't do that. Obviously on a motorway, you might want to stay on the motorway, but if it's a little 1 minute off and you actually you just go into a nice little village, plug your car in and
that'd be really cool.
Hang out for 20 minutes. That'd be really nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Most undervalued car at the moment. What should be worth more?
Of any value? What should be worth? Oh, classic or...
Undervalued of any value.
Of anything. I'll tell you what, a Hillman Imp is the most undervalued car, which you may well know. I bought one about 5 months ago. And so Hillman Imp values go between sort of £3,000 and £7,000. So £7,000 is as nice as they get, and £3,000 as well as you'll get a resto case. And they're as interesting as a Mini. They're interestingly packaged. They're rear-wheel drive. They've got a rear engine, an aluminium Revy rear engine based on a Coventry Climax engine. So they're really interesting. Gordon Murray's got one and thinks they're terrific. They're just fantastic, and they are about a fifth, I would say, of the value of an equivalent Mini. I reckon. And if you are spending $25,000 on a Mini Cooper, an equivalent Imp will cost you about $5,000. They're just got. I'm hoping to turn mine into one of the best handling cars that I've ever driven. That's the plan.
Nice. How much do they weigh?
Get it going first. Weighs about, I think, with a cage and everything else. Mine's got a cage in it. I think it weighs about 750, something like that, 750 kilos. So they're clever. They were made in Scotland by the Roots Group, and they were made for a while. I can't remember how many they made, maybe 500,000, something like that. But they had very early quality problems in early cars. It was a new factory. The staff were not, it wasn't another line at an existing car factory. And I think they sorted it out with later cars, but it never, it struggled with its reputation a bit early on. But I think they make great cars now. A rear-engined rear-wheel drive car for, that weighs less than 800 kilos and has a really revvy engine. So I think, as classics go, they're criminally undervalued. He says, talking up the value of the car he's just bought.
Fair play. Fair enough. It sounds like
not that I intend to sell it. Yeah, not that I intend to sell it at all.
Right. Most interesting car to you at the moment?
I was listening to you the other day talking to the designer of the Morgan Super 3, and I'm really interested about that. Loads going on, because I just thought, it's a new Morgan three-wheeler, but the fact that there is no wood under the body, the panels are stressed, the idea that those big aluminium castings that they've put in are structural chassis castings, but also engine mounts. I love the way he was talking about the wheels. It's not got the wire wheels anymore, but because they want to put the hubs closer to the wheel center for better dynamics. Yeah. So the middle of the wheel sticks out further than the tire, so they've redesigned the tire to make it look like it doesn't. Really, loads of really interesting stuff. I just think and it's also a small, light, affordable driver's car. Brilliant. I'm all over that. Yeah, it's the most interesting car for me of the moment.
One of the thing I took away from that, of talking to them, because you see something come out and you're like, okay, it's just a new three-wheeler. And I drove the old one. It's kind of fun, but equally kind of awful at the same time.
It's like a classic from the off, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But then you talk to them and you're like, no, the main changes you've done will make this better to drive.
Yeah.
It's not just about how it looks or whatever. It's going to be better to drive and better to use and better to do road trips in and all of this stuff. Like, brilliant.
And all of and I do like the way it looks. And the fact that most of it is because it's functional is really great, isn't it? You go, oh yeah, that makes perfect. Yeah, now I see why it looks like that, and it's just I think that's really. I think I haven't seen one in the flesh yet. I've only seen it in pictures, but I think we spend a bit more time with it in June. I think we get to spend some time with it, and I can't wait. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's cool. And in the flesh, I had a look around it in the place in London, and then saw an old one, and I hadn't seen an old one in a while. But having looked around the new one and then looked around the old one, you're like, oh wow, this looks so different.
Really? Is it because sometimes a new car comes out and suddenly makes the old one look quite old, doesn't it?
It looks really old.
It's like that, yeah.
And I like the look of the old one, but now having seen the new one, 100% I would, if it was like you could just have this car or this car, I would have the new one over the old one. Like that for me, I think, without having driven it.
Yeah, I can't wait to have a go.
But yeah, right. Final question: 5-car garage, unlimited value.
Yes, this would be completely different to the last one. Discovery 3 or 4, but modded slightly, probably for a bit extra refinement. I mean, they're very refined anyway, but I just love them to bits. They're so practical as a sort of everyday practical tow car. I'd like a pre-war racing car, something like a Bugatti Type 35 or something, probably. Something with 2 seats ideally, because then you can multi-purpose it and do some racing at some amazing events, but also you could go to the pub on a Sunday, which would be really mega.
Yeah,
I might keep my Baja Bug, which is and just for modding, because I think it'd be cool to have something that's slightly soft and plush off road that you can go green laning in, that is bouncy and stuff as well. And then that's
3.
Is that 3 or is that 4?
That's 3. I think
that's 3. Oh, excellent. Porsche 917, just because.
Why not?
Just because I can tow it behind the thing and run it at the same time as the other one. And then I don't know, probably a small lightweight sports car of some kind, but it'd be nice if it felt bespoke. Probably an Alphaholics GT8R, I think, would do the job, and I think I'd probably use that a lot. And because you can drive them quickly, and they go quickly. You can drive them on track, you can drive them on the road. They're enjoyable everywhere, and they feel like a really high-end, jewelish piece of kit. I sort of like my Imp to become something like that on the budget that I can spare. And I'm told Alphaholics have some enormous waiting list anyway. So even if you have got 300 grand, they'll go, we can get back to you in
2 years or
years. Somebody told me, So that would be, that would do it.
They would be sorted. Yeah.
Quite.
I think for me, for my unlimited 5-car garage, I think the first thing I would do, just in this, the problem is it needs to fit into your life, but I would want to move. Because at the moment, I'm in it's London-ish, and there's just it's not fun getting in a car and driving for 20 minutes. Like, there is no fun driving around me.
No. And especially if it's, I heard you say this the other day about a Ferrari F40 gives you an amazing half-hour fix.
Yes.
And it strikes me a bit like listening to some weird freeform jazz or Jeff Buckley or something I can't listen to for very long, but I would like listening to for a bit. And then go, okay, I'm done now, and now I need to listen to something else. Yeah. And some cars are a bit like that, aren't they? They're an amazing fix, but you want to
drive it, like you said, to the pub or to a restaurant or to a cafe, meet some friends, and then come back. And you probably don't want to drive for that long, maybe 40 minutes or half an hour or something, and the drive to be fun.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that's a thing about a sort of a road trip to. A road trip to the Nordschleife to then do some stuff around the circuit. And I think I saw somebody on social the other day, and they'd taken they'd done one of the Destination Nürburgring track days or something, and they'd taken their 911 GTS rather than a GT3 for that reason. You think, well, actually, I've got to spend a day getting there and a day getting back, and just the extra 10% that a GT3 might give me on track, it's probably just too much hard work. And you go, I totally get that, because some cars are a bit like motorbikes. I think I enjoy my peak motorbiking more than I enjoy my peak driving. But for the rest of the time, there are times I've had much more miserable times on a motorbike than I've ever had in a car on the way to the greatest rides ever. And there's a fitness for purpose for everything, isn't there? Really?
Yeah. And I think I'm getting, over time, I'm going like more and more polarized. Well, I sort of am and not. I think I'm just like, I want something super luxurious and nice for all of the time. And then if I'm getting in a sports car, I want it to be awesome and like raw, and that's it. Because as soon as you start doing the middle and you're like, I want to drive a sports car all the time, that's not actually what they're good at.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Although with the sort of recommending the weird stuff right on the extremes, which I feel like I'm into a bit with sort of extreme cars and resto mods and stuff like an aerial nomad and things like that, and the Morgan 3-wheeler to an extent. I sort of think, God, do I sound like some kind of film reviewer who's only banging on about 3-hour-long German language dark comedies, and just like, that nobody's got any interest in? What? No, I just want to take my brain off for 2 hours. What are you talking about? Some weird, challenging, it's such an interesting film. You're thinking about it in 3 weeks' time. I don't want to think about it in 3 weeks' time. I just want to do it 2 hours. So, so I'm slightly every time somebody says,
I say that on
should
paper.
I buy a 3-wheeler? Yeah, should I buy a 3-wheeler or a Morgan or an aerial nomad? And I go, oh, absolutely. Maybe they get one and go, what the earth? What the hell are you recommending?
As much as I say it, like I don't live it. I don't do it. And now, like right this second, I also have a Gen 2 991 GTS that I bought to live with a 911.
Yeah.
Which means I have 3 911s, but one is a GT3 RS 997, and I never drive the 997.
Really?
I just don't drive it, and I have it's there. I just don't drive it, and I think the reality is, I'm either going a long way. My drives at the moment are either a long way, so an hour and a half down a motorway, or something like that, or they're quite short and they're kind of towny-ish. So neither of those, sitting in a hardcore car with thin windows, is good.
No. You need to live somewhere else, basically. That's the short.
You just got to live somewhere else. That's the solution. Right, well, there we go. I think we sort of I don't know what conclusions you can draw from that. Hardcore cars are nice, middle of the road cars are nice, luxury cars
all cars are great. Basically, cars are great. That's the short of it. Yeah, regardless of what they're powered by, and regardless of what they are much. Second class driving is much better than first class walking. That is the conclusion.
Right. Well, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me again. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it.